The Paul Leslie Hour, helping people tell their stories. And now, your host, Paul Leslie.
Hey, it's me. It's a great pleasure to be joined by the Bengsons. That's Shaun and Abigail Bengson. They are folk rock musicians. They're here to talk about their cast album of the stage musical 100 Days. They're also married. We have them both on the line. Thank you so much for making the time to do this.
Man, we're so honored. Nice to talk to you, man.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. It's not every day that I get to have a married couple on here. It's great to have you on. I'm curious, did you all start working creatively together first, or were you married first? How did that happen?
Pretty much. Yeah, yeah, it pretty much happened in the exact same moment. We met playing in this other band, and we knew each other for a tiny amount of time, but had never been alone in a room together. And then finally, I was getting ready to start my own band, and Abigail, if she would be in it with me. And at the first rehearsal, the rest of the band members went home, and Abigail stayed, and then 3 weeks later, we were married.
3 weeks?
Yeah.
That's right, man.
Wow.
When you know, you know.
So it was mutual. You both knew. I don't not only want to work with this person, I wouldn't mind being married to them either.
Yeah, no, it was kind of a terrifying feeling, really. Like I knew really quickly that she was my person, and that's really not how I thought the whole world worked. You know, I didn't think that was really an option, that you could know that fast, and it was terrifying because I feel like there was those few weeks, like it was like trying to figure out if the other felt the same way, and I think it was also something about falling in love that sort of made us both realize our own mortality. You know, something about like placing so much love and feeling into this other person kind of made us realize how fragile this whole operation is. And then Abigail had some things happen in her past too that started all kind of bubbling up during this moment, and it was a fraught, beautiful time. So it was actually, I think, at the end there when we just decided to get hitched, it was just a tremendous relief. It felt like, okay, now we can actually like calm down and start living life together. You know,
right?
Yeah, and that's really what 100 Days is about. It's looking at those 3 weeks, and you know, all the love and the terror of that moment.
Well, tell me about the experience of writing this 100 Days. How did it come together?
Well, it was a long process. You know, really, Shaun and I, we started writing music together right away. And, you know, we fell in love so quickly, and this sort of terror that Shaun is describing, you know, I was really deeply convinced at the time, and I know this sounds cuckoo, but I really thought that anyone that I loved would die quickly. I had just come out of some sort of family trauma. I have a beautiful family, but it had fallen apart pretty spectacularly. So I really had, you know, I had some issues with PTSD, and I think falling in love with Shaun, I was really afraid that to trust that and love someone that deeply. And so we started music about exactly those feelings. And that's how 100 Days started to get written. It was a way for us to communicate about the love and the mania and the excitement and also the fear and the grief. It was a way for us to sort of process all of that together, and also to sort of create from a spiritual place about things that were keeping us from living as fully as we wanted to. And at first, the first draft of 100 Days of the show was is very different than what we have now. We've written versions of this show over nearly 10 years, so it's really evolved and changed, but every time it changed, it just got closer to sort of the truth of our actual experience, which at first we really didn't want to do. We thought it sounded kind of indulgent and selfish to write about our actual lives. But since then, it's really become, it's become clear that when we weren't doing that, when we were sort of putting veils between us and the audience, it actually did a disservice to the music and to what we were trying to do. So over the years, it's become just more and more of a true story, emotionally true story.
Something that I noticed listening to the recording, sometimes when you get a cast recording, you listen to some of the songs and you just think, yeah, I guess I can appreciate the talent here, but I don't really understand the context without seeing the show. And I didn't feel that way with this. The songs stood up on their own.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I enjoyed listening very much. My pleasure. Was it something when you were writing the songs, was it, we want to make this, I guess what I'm asking is, how did you make songs that stood on their own so well, but also would incorporate into a show?
Oh, man. What you just said, my friend, that is a huge part of our mission as composers for theater. We really focus first on trying to make music that sort of has its own, its own spine, so it can sort of function as music that is pleasurable or has depth outside of any particular context. We hope. That's the dream. And then it's a really interesting, complicated process of sort of upholding the individuality of each song and working with our collaborators to make sure that they are also telling the story the way we want them to. Do you agree with that, Shaun?
Yeah, I feel like that's part of why the show has taken us so long to develop, is we really did want all the music in it to stand on its own as well. And so because of that, what the songs do is a little less straightforward than the function of music and a lot of musical theater, and so it was a little bit this combination of writing for specific moments, but also sort of retrofitting the story, because there would be a piece of music that felt very important, and it would take us a little while to figure out what was the narrative context that best served that song. I feel like that's also a little bit our desire to have the music stand like that is also what led to a lot of our choices in terms of the structure and the frame of the piece. The show, especially when it starts out very much as concert. And there's just the six of us on stage, and we're telling stories and we're singing songs. And we found that this was the context that helped the audience, to best hear what we were trying to do. And I do find, particularly with music in theater, so much of what makes it work or not work is the frame that you set up, helping people to know how to listen to what you're trying to do. And it took a long time to figure out what the exact right thing was for this, not that we've nailed it perfectly, but I do feel pleased with what we landed at, and what we landed at allowed us to do, the kind of music that we were really hoping to make.
I'm curious, with you all being folk rock musicians and doing this musical, who would you say your musical influences are?
Oh man, we love all sorts. We grew up, our parents raised us listening to, the old 60s folkies, Paul Simon and James Taylor and Joni Mitchell,
Odetta,
and all of those. And also just through a lot of folk music and kind of world music from all over the place. So that's very much Like that's our kind of where we started from. And as we grew, we both also grew up loving theater, and like some of the classic, like Sondheim shows and all of that. And then what we discovered as we were making music is that at first we sort of had these two tracks, like we had our songs we wrote for our band, and then we had our songs we wrote for our shows, and those two things just sort of merged over time. And the people that we found to be big inspirations in terms of that sort of combo, is like the show Hedwig, I think is a really great example of that, of a concert and a musical. We love the work of Stu and the Negro Problem. He made Passing Strange, and we also really love music that isn't from theater but does have a strong narrative storytelling element. Like a lot of like Sufjan Stevens music. I think it tells really beautiful stories, and he'll often make albums that are organized around like one larger idea. Like his recent album is all about songs about his mother and his stepfather who had just passed away. So, and all of that's been a really big influence to us. Did I miss anything, Abigail?
I think that's great, man. Yeah. I love all those people.
You mentioned a lot of people there, but you also mentioned Stephen Sondheim, and that brought my mind to one of the reviews that I read. You guys got a lot of really, really great reviews. One of them, the New York Times, they said, "The Banksons offer luminous hope that a new generation of talent in American theater is taking up Stephen Sondheim's mantle of exquisite ambivalence."
Woohoo! That's a good
that really
one,
meant
man.
a lot to me that they said that. That was really nice.
Amazing.
There were so many of these great reviews. Was there a review or, I don't know, just a comment maybe from somebody that was the most meaningful to you?
Oh my. I mean, the review thing is a complicated thing because I feel like, we're in one of the few professions where like your job review is a totally public event,
Yeah.
I feel like us and a lot of our friends and peers who are also, in this work, you're always kind of navigating, do you read them? Do you not read them? If you don't read them, then often everyone else has read them anyway, so they look at you with pride or with pity at the opening night party, depending. And it's really, I feel like the real task is to try to like keep an even keel and not be seduced and not be reduced by anybody's opinion. That said, man, when it's good, it's like a drug. It feels so good when your work gets recognized. And a quote like that, I mean, I think the most amazing thing is for me when someone comes to the show, a critic or a friend or a family member or just a person who's interested and feels like they connected to it in a personal way, like it moved them or it inspired them to make art or to connect with people they love or to live more fully. Like that's what we're in it. That's our job. Our job is to make complex pieces of work that inspire people to live. I feel like that's what I'm here to do, and do so in a way that feels inclusive and not patronizing, and those are really hard things to do. And so of course, when someone says that we've achieved even one part of that, it feels amazing. And that Sondheim quote, I called my mom. I totally called my mom on that and celebrated. That's like a little girl dream for sure.
Yeah. There's been a few times that people after seeing the show have written to us and shared their own experiences. There's a woman who wrote us this really lovely letter, like snail mail letter about that the feelings of battling fear in love reminded her of her experience with her now husband, who is Muslim and was trying to was trying to get legalize his immigration status, like right in the aftermath of September 11th. And just that her experience of living through the fear of that, of placing all of her love in this person while not knowing, whether he would be kicked out of the country tomorrow, just really moved me a lot. And there's been a few people too who have, we blessedly don't end up having to go through the trauma of one of us getting the terrible diagnosis, or we haven't yet, but people who have lived through that, and their partners are either living or have passed, have shared their stories with us after seeing the show, and it's very humbled to hear them.
On the note of what you were just saying, the person who saw the show and wrote you a letter.
Yeah.
When somebody listens to this cast recording, or when they see the show, what is it that, in an ideal world, that they get from that experience?
Oh, man. I mean, who knows? I mean, I do feel like, to a certain extent, we have to make a thing and then we have to let it go, and what people get is what they get. But what I'm always hoping, I hope that people feel, at first, really, truly welcomed. I think Shaun and I always, before a show, sort of think about just the idea that everyone, no matter where they are in their lives, is fighting a hard battle. That we kind of assume that, you're coming into this space and you're carrying a woundedness with you. You also want to have a good time. Maybe you're on a date, but that there's some part of you that's sort of hungry. And I feel like our job is to try to make you feel welcome in your whole self, if such a thing can be done by a stranger. Then I feel like we hope that people feel seen in the hardship and inspired to know that, we're all in it together, and, that there is a possibility of hope. That's my dream. It's sometimes we achieve it and sometimes we don't, I'm sure, but that's our intention. We try to always keep really clear.
Yeah, that's right. I feel like we're living through frightening times, and in a way, that's always been the case with humanity. But I do feel like it's a moment where we are really buffeted with a lot of tales of woe, and outlook is sometimes not looking so great. So I feel like really like what we're trying to do with the show is try to provide evidence that even with the fear of our times and our lives, that don't let it keep you from loving,
That's right.
Anyone out there, if they want more information, it's Banksons.com, Bengsons. Also, 100days.org. The release is available on Ghostlight Records, ghostlightrecords.com. Thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything you would like to say in closing to our audience?
Oh my goodness, it was a pleasure to get to talk to you, and I hope you listen to the music, and I hope you find us in Tampa or Miami or any of these tour dates and come say hi if you do.
Yes, thank you so much.
My pleasure. All right, folks, until next time.
Okay, bye.
All right,
thank you.
Thank
bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Paul Leslie Hour. If you enjoy these interviews, please consider rating, reviewing, and subscribing to the podcast. You can help us by listening on the free Radio Public app. The show can also be found on iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, or Overcast. For more information, visit thepaulleslie.com or follow on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, all at The Paul Leslie. The Paul Leslie Hour theme song is performed and composed by Jeff Pike. Outro music is performed and composed by John Goodwin. See you next time on The Paul Leslie Hour.